Okay, we are back. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my lovely and talented co-host who always flashes sign of,
You know exactly how to make
yes,
me
I
beam,
know, I
baby.
know, with Miss Andrea Kay.
Thank
And
you.
Urban Miaris is with us today. Always fun to have Urban. And we have an old friend of mine with us today,
Oh,
Mr.
really?
Clinton Brown.
A blast from your past.
Blast.
Now I can get all the down and
Well,
dirty about
yeah,
you.
actually,
The true story about
actually,
Barry.
he doesn't know anything about my past, only my present.
Oh, I thought we were going to have like a real life, like Hollywood true story about Barry.
Okay, next week.
All right.
So it's always next week. Welcome, Clinton Brown from Clinton Brown Financial.
Thank you, Barry.
Great.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
So now, Clinton, I've known you for a while, and I know you do things. You take a little different approach to the financial service business. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you focus.
Yeah, well, all of us remember 2008 when real estate was getting beat up and the stock market was getting beat up, and it was a rough time for a lot of people here in the United States. Same with my clientele. I manage a lot of 401ks and defined benefit pension plans, and these retirement plans were a concern to business owners. So I continually receive requests to help them figure out how to close down their retirement plans.
Why would a client want to close down their retirement plan?
Well, as an employer, retirement plans do come with a cost, and if you're specifically talking about the retirement plan that is referred to in the industry as defined benefit, which most people outside of the industry know as pension plans, those plans are quite robust and can end up being a big part of the annual budget for any employer.
Well, let's take a quick step back. Just because I have a background in this myself, I think that what we need to do is refocus a little bit. For the listeners, there are a lot of different types of retirement plans out there. You have a defined contribution, which defines how the employer and the employee make their contribution. Then you have what Clinton's talking about is the defined benefit, which defines what the employee gets at retirement. So tell us how those costs, why would a defined benefit plan have costs that get out of control?
If you can imagine a group of employers who are hiring people from years ago,
right.
And one of the promised benefits when somebody is hired is that they're going to have a retirement plan when they turn 65, and that they're going to get a monthly stream of income of X amount of their salary, or X percent of their salary. So this employer is required, and it's governed by law, and they're required to have a certain amount of money in an account that's earmarked for that employee. Well, that's employee number one. As they hire employee number 2, 3, 4, and build up to thousands of employees, you can see how the numbers can add up greatly. So what happened was in the 50s and 60s, these defined benefit pension plans were fantastic, and a lot of our parents, or in some cases grandparents, had those.
They were really a heavy focus in the industrial age.
Right. And so, however, recently in the 70s, 80s, and most recently even to today, these plans have become far too expensive for employers to be able to continue and to maintain.
Okay, now I've read your book, okay, and a wonderful book. What's the name of your book again?
The Pension Dilemma.
The Pension Dilemma. Okay, and let's give some ideas on how these plans were designed and what they look like when they get out of control.
Well, going back to my original example of hire number 1 all the way up to hire number 1,000, each person has this lump sum that's catered to them, and every year the employer is required to add to that because these lump sums have to grow because they've completed another year of service at their job, and they're required to grow by inflationary standards. So that might be 4% per year. So you have not only the contribution for last year's year of work that this employee had, but you also have a 4% growth rate, for example, that's required. And multiply that by the number of employees you have, you can see that it can become quite overwhelming.
So in some cases, and this comes out of your book, in some cases, the cost of these plans can be more than a third of the employee's salary.
Certainly. Okay. Yeah. In fact, just a few weeks ago, Motorola closed down their defined benefit pension plan and just 27% of their plan was valued over $3 billion with a B.
Wow.
So the other, you can do the math to realize that they're looking at a $10 billion plan.
So in order to stay solvent or keep an employee base, they're having to basically cut cost by eliminating their pension plans. Is there a way to restructure it so maybe they can avoid having to completely close it down?
Good question. Yeah.
Thank you.
So when somebody is at this point of struggle where they can't afford the salaries, they can't afford the marketing, they can't afford the advancement of their company because this pension commitment is so overwhelming, they actually have an option to freeze their plan, where they can freeze it for a time or close it down. Usually the natural step is to freeze a plan. And that by freezing the plan, essentially what it does is it says, as of this date, no more accrual of this benefit. You get the benefit up to this date, so you're not going to lose that. But anything in the future is no more until we figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happened at a previous employer of mine, and at least I didn't, freezing was better than it completely going away at that point.
And you'd be surprised to know, just here in San Diego, there's 40 plus frozen defined benefit pension plans with a value between all of them over $1 billion.
Wow.
And so there's even companies right here in San Diego that are facing these issues.
Well, when we speak, from the close-up perspective, we support the small business here in San Diego. And what I see is if companies have these intense costs in their retirement plan, the only options they have are to cut back in one way or increase in another, cut back on expenses at the company or increase costs to the consumer. Either way, we're all losing.
Right.
So
it's a highly complicated scenario. You have employees who are depending on this retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
You have employers who actually, believe it or not, want to offer the retirement plan. You have the issue of, do I increase cost to the consumer? Do I sever some of the workforce? It's a very emotional and complicated process, most certainly.
Interesting. So tell our listeners, I'm going to do this a couple times before we're done because I think it's important. Tell our listeners how they get a hold of you, how they find out more information, or maybe they can get in touch with you to get a copy of your book so they can read about it.
Sure. My core website is clintonbrownfinancial.com. I do have a side site called thepensiondilemma.com as well. That's with 2 M's in the word dilemma.
Okay.
The best phone number to get a hold of me is 949-315-7122.
Great. So you're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450, Bloomberg Radio, and streaming live on the web at financialnewsandtalk.com. Give us a tweet at CloseUpSD or find us on Facebook. We do want to hear from you. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea Kay and Urban Miaris. And our guest is Mr. Clinton Brown from Clinton Brown Financial.
Now, I'm sure there's lots of legal issues that come about when you're working with companies, I would imagine. Maybe I'm wrong when you're dealing with this.
Yeah.
And so is that handled yourself, or do you form a strategic partnership with different parties involved to help businesses deal with this? How does that work?
Yeah, we form strategic partnerships and that guide through this process. There's ERISA attorneys that are out there that help in this process. There's what's called the third-party administrator. These are all very boring terms, but they're involved. And then you have a financial advisor like myself or Barry who's involved, who walks through that process. And really my whole goal here is that it's so complicated and it's so legally driven, this process, that the employees usually are left very confused and very unsure of what's happening and how it's going to affect them directly.
Well, I think one of the key points that I'd like you to talk about a little bit is, we talk about freezing the plan, we talk about closing the plan, what have you. Let's talk about the impact to the employee when that happens. If I'm an employee, I'm thinking to closing my plan down, I'm going to lose all my retirement. And that's not the case, is it?
No, in fact, that's really the premise of my book, is to bring peace to the employee, believe it or not. And really what goes on is when that frozen date happens, or when that closure date happens, your benefit that you've been accruing all those years up until that point will continue to be your benefit. It will not continue to grow, but it'll be yours. And upon closure, you may have quite a few employees who are currently receiving their monthly benefit. They may have retired from the company, and they're already receiving it. Those employers are typically carved out, and they're transferred over to an annuity company who then continues to pay them on a monthly basis. So they don't feel any type of hit to their retirement plan as they're going. It's the current employees who are the ones who have to make decisions of, do I roll this out into a new retirement plan offered by the employer? Do I roll it out into an IRA? Do I cash it out and pay the taxes and take the money? Those type of options will be offered to the employee.
Right. But what you do is you go in and you negotiate with the employer on what you're going to do. Then you help solve the problem for the employees, so nobody is left out in the cold.
Right. So you have attorneys, TPAs, the employer, the employee. The employer, the TPAs and attorneys are talking one language. The employees understand a different language. My job is to be that translator.
That's kind of like every other week when Al Arias is on here. I have to decipher his language so the general public can understand it.
Yeah, you and Stephanie.
Yeah.
You guys are his translators.
And I was going to bring up the small business owner you would think would be immune to this, because this is, we're talking Motorola, billions of dollars. There are only 2 plans in San Diego that have a value higher than $25 million. All the others are $25 million or less, and of those, about 50% are under $2 million. So it is the small business owner that's staring at a frozen plan and wondering, what do I do next?
And it's the small business owner that has the greatest impact to their business when one of their plans gets out of control.
Right.
So, great. Well, we're just about out of time. Tell our listeners one more time, how do they get a hold of you? How do they find out more information about your company?
ClintonBrownFinancial.com. You can also go to thepensiondilemma.com. Best phone number, 949-315-7122.
And you are one of our local guys here from San Diego and Orange County. You just carry the Orange County number. So please, for our listeners, give Clinton a call if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego business and the people that are working hard to make a difference in their community. Send us a tweet at CloseUpSD, or just find us on Facebook and let us know what you think. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.